Hey folks, Mobile Geezer here with this week's Geezer Bits for Sunday, April 22nd, 2018. So I don't have a lot of stories this week, but I'm going to start with what I consider the most depressing one, and that's the ongoing story between the United States government and ZTE Corporation. The U.S. Commerce Department has banned all U.S. companies from selling to ZTE. Now, I guess I should give you a little more background on that story. ZTE pleaded guilty in March 2017 and agreed to pay a $1.19 billion penalty for having shipped equipment to Iran and North Korea in violation of U.S. regulations. The company promised to discipline employees involved in the scheme, but the U.S. Commerce Department said last week that they were paid bonuses instead. The Chinese company admitted in March that while it had fired 4 senior employees who they were required to fire, they had not disciplined 35 others who were supposed to either lose bonuses or have their bonuses lessened, but instead they got their full bonuses. The U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security this week banned American companies from selling to ZTE for 7 years, saying the Chinese company had broken a settlement agreement and made repeated false statements. American companies are estimated to provide 25 to 30% of the components used in ZTE's equipment, which includes networking gear and smartphones. So this could really seriously impact ZTE. But on Saturday, the U.S. Commerce Department granted ZTE Corporation's request to submit more evidence, a senior commerce official said. According to commerce regulations, there is no appeals process, but the agency has exercised discretion to let ZTE present additional evidence through an informal procedure, a senior official said. So, hopefully, whenever ZTE comes back and presents, we'll get them somewhat off the hook, or at least take away this 7-year ban. And this is, to me, very sad, because I have some relationship with ZTE American employees, and I've always found them to be extremely nice, helpful, honest, and very straight up. So I hope for them and for the entire corporation that this stuff gets worked out. But we'll see what develops. This story obviously is not going away anytime soon. Next up, the Russian government wants the Telegram messenger service removed from the Google Play Store. Seems the government asked Telegram to unencrypt their messaging service so that they could see what was being said in the messages. Well, Telegram refused to comply with that and said they absolutely were not going to unencrypt. The Telegram messenger service is encrypted end to end, and I gather if they unencrypted it for Russia, it would be unencrypted everywhere, and they're not willing to do that. The ironic part is that Telegram is owned by a Russian citizen, but he will not back down. So the Russian government has gone to their equivalent of the Supreme Court, which of course has taken their side, and they are trying their best to shut down the Telegram message service. Russia's communications regulator blocked some Alphabet Incorporated internet addresses, which of course belong to Google, blaming Google for helping Pavel Durov, the owner of Telegram, evade government blocking. Google hasn't complied with the request, and despite a court ruling, keeps allowing Telegram Messenger to use its IP addresses to operate in Russia. Therefore, some Google IP addresses have been added into a register of banned internet resources. The Russian government doesn't like it when they can't see what people are saying back and forth, and they're determined to stop it. And next up, the ongoing story with the U.S. government and Huawei. Now, Huawei hasn't been banned from anything in the U.S., but the government does recommend that no one buy their products, and Huawei said they weren't leaving the U.S. and they weren't backing down. But this week, Huawei laid off 5 U.S. employees, including Vice President of External Affairs, William B. Plummer. What this means as far as Huawei's presence in the U.S., no one is sure, but it can't be a good sign. Of course, I, for one, hope Huawei keeps selling in the U.S. My latest phone is the Huawei Mate SE, and I think it's a pretty terrific phone. But I guess the politics is ongoing, and we're not going to see a quick resolution to this problem either. So let's move on to some lighter topics. This week, the Moto E5, Moto E5 Plus, and Moto E5 Play, along with the Moto E6, the Moto E6 Plus, and the Moto E6 Play, were all announced in Brazil. I guess that they'll be coming out for sale next month, and there's some question about which phones will be coming to America. Right now, if you look on Moto's US website, you can see the Moto E5 and the Moto E5 Play, and you can see the Moto G6 and G6 Play, but not the G5 Plus or the E5 Plus. So, don't know if we'll be able to import it. I'd be looking to import the G6 Plus as long as the bands work fine in the US, but we'll have to wait and see. Also, there are a number of stories stating that the Moto G6 phones will get their updates, but not the E5 handsets. So, even though the E5 handsets are extremely well priced and they're good phones for the money, people will probably not be running out to buy them if they know they're not going to be getting updates. But we'll have to wait and see. And finally, last week I reported how some companies were giving false Android updates to Android phones, and there were a number of companies involved, stating that it was this month's security update. It could be 3 or 4 months older. But I was listening to Android Central's podcast this week, and those guys are very knowledgeable about such things. They said although the company that put out the initial warning is being somewhat factual, they're leaving a lot out, whereas certain phones that aren't getting proper updates, well, if you look into those phones, there's no reason why they would get those updates, because the updates are for software that's not even included in those phones in the first place. So take the whole story with a grain of salt. Also, the company that originally brought this up sells a product that will show you all kinds of update information. So it would benefit them if you believed the story and bought their product. So just wanted to point that out. And the last thing I had for this week, yesterday I picked up the Fitbit Versa fitness tracker, wearing it now, and I put out my first video on it a little while ago, showing the setup process. So I'll be wearing the Fitbit Versa and putting it through its paces, testing its battery, and of course using it as a fitness tracker for the next bunch of weeks, and I'll probably have it for a very long time. So that's all I had for this week, folks. As always, comments are welcome, and thanks for watching. Yeah.